Hello, everyone. This is Aekta Kapoor, and welcome to today's episode of eShe TV, where we're going to talk about extramarital affairs. Now, before I begin, I'd like to make it clear that this is a non judgmental space. So, we're not here to pass judgments on whether extramarital affairs are good or whether they're bad, and we're not here to judge people for having them. Now, what we are hoping is that if you're in an extramarital affair or if you're considering one, then make an informed decision and understand what are the consequences and what are the reasons why you may be doing that. And if you're the other partner who's been betrayed, then hopefully you'll get some tips out of this session on how to deal with it. And if you're neither of those two, and if you're in a perfectly happy marriage, or if you're not in a marriage, then maybe you can just learn from other people's experiences, and you can have your infidelity response program ready. So did you know that there was a pandemic response program called Predict, which was funded by US aid, and President Trump in the US, he discontinued the funding to that particular program, and 3 months later COVID-19 struck. So we know how that went after that. So basically, being prepared is a good thing, and having your infidelity response program is it's something you should consider. So today, let me invite my co-host for today's episode. I'm going to welcome Shweta into the
Hello.
studio. So
Hi,
Shweta
everyone.
Bhandral, this is Shweta Bhandral, and she has been in the media now for 20 years. She was in the TV news industry as a television producer for a long time. She's also a Google certified news verification trainer, and she creates awareness about misinformation and fake news. She teaches journalism, and she's a poet and a blogger, and she also runs her own podcast on relationships, which is why she's here today. So Shweta is also a writer for eShe. She's been with us for a while. So Shweta, let's start with you now. Why don't you share your thoughts on extramarital affairs in the Indian context, starting from historical times to now?
Ekta, when we talk about extramarital affairs, and when you're saying that we are discussing a topic and we are not actually judging anyone on it, but for everyone, it's something, for people to be prepared. Also, it's an interesting conversation that we are having. Also, another reason is that in past 6 months or so, or 7 months or so, we have seen a lot of people a lot of married people getting onto dating apps. So that also could be one of the reasons why we are here talking about it, and why it's essential to talk about it, because everybody, before getting into it, should know the pros and cons. When we talk about Indian culture very particularly, we've seen that in our culture, men have had they have had the privilege to basically have more than one wife. So we've seen, though there was Ram, which was who actually stood by being one woman's man. So but there was also Krishna. There was also several others historically, if we see. So Arjun, uh, uh, you know there have been cases, there have been kings after that who have had uh, you know wives because of various reasons, political reasons, territorial reasons. But it has not ever been a stigma or seen, and everybody kind of went ahead with it. But yes, in those times also, for people who were have-nots, I would say, who had little lesser money than the kings and the bigger businessmen would stick to one wife. So monogamy has been our thread, and we've kind of built a moral compass around it. Yet, I would say that now, if we see nowadays, we can see celebrities, who are trying to make it look like it's okay to fall in love again. The concept of love in its own self is very different for different people, and different for different people in terms of different to which society or strata you belong to, economically, I mean, very particularly. So that's what I think is the base what we are talking about today. That it has been there, but there is there has been a little bit of it has been there and not there in the society. So 50% or say the have-nots and the have-cut difference has always been there in this case as well. So
Yeah. So while the kings were allowed to have their many wives, I would actually say that as far as women were concerned, we still had a raw deal way back then as well, and now as well. When you're talking about Krishna, he had Radha in his life, and they were
So
both
I,
married to different
okay,
people.
so sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but Radha is
Hmm.
a very interesting concept. When you bring
Hmm.
about Radha, and when
Hmm.
we talk about we say Ram, Sita, Siya Ram, and Radha Krishna. So when we talk about Radha, Radha was not part of the. So the stories of Radha are not found in the very old original scriptures of our religion per se. You will not see too many places. So you will not see Radha Krishna in Puri. The bigger temples, which are known for which are known as Vishnu dhams, you don't have Radha there. So Radha is majorly uh, restricted to this circle of Gokul, Vrindavan, and Mathura, those kind of areas, and that's where it's a concept. It's a concept. It's a story. It's a poetry that developed over few years when so there were gopis always, and out of that gopis Radha became one, and then that concept of Radha symbolizes. So as people wrote it and there were stories, we all know that there are lots of stories around, and the story kept on growing, 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 and the poets were bold enough to imagine Radha to be a married woman who is actually uh, involved with Krishna. Now, the involvement of Radha with Krishna symbolizes that basic fact that she's a person who's bonded by the society with society's responsibilities and worries, etc., and is wanting to connect with the divine. So that is what actually that kind of love symbolizes.
But actually, I would say that that kind of a love is better than the other kind, than the kind that Lord Ram and Sita's relationship symbolized. I think, I can never forgive Lord Ram for, banishing his wife just because of what some silly fellow on the road had to say about her. I mean, if he wanted to be a role model, he should have been a role model in terms of standing up for his wife and not letting
Exactly.
other people, say anything about it. On the other hand, he's become a role model for all the wrong reasons, and he set such
Obviously.
a wrong
We can say that.
precedent.
We can say that.
Yeah, and it's like now because of that one, I would say one act of his, this whole concept of "log kya kahenge" has become the motto of Indian
Oh,
marriages.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
"log kya kahenge" is more important than your relationship with each other. So that's I think that's the biggest wrong he's done. And the other thing is that he's basically certified that the wife is supposed to be the property of the husband. And this is in her case. So poor thing, she was kidnapped, and even then she had to be banished. Imagine if she had had a interest in somebody else, he would have we don't know what he would have done. And till today,
Yeah.
women are wives and girlfriends are killed just because some other they got a text message from another man. There are horrible news cases you hear about
Yeah.
how jealous husbands and boyfriends can be. So yeah, if we when we're talking about extramarital relationships were easier for men than for women in the past till today. But I think now, there is a certain stigma for both, right? I mean, whether
Definitely.
it's a man or a woman, So what do you think? Like, is
And
the
that
stigma
stigma
now more or
actually
less
came
equal?
from, yeah, so that now it's a stigma for both because, there is this, so as we spoke about poetry, stories, love, and with love came that thing, that expectation. And the thing that you are talking about, that it's my property at the end of the day. So all those things actually led to probably a lot of the feeling of betrayal, and then it became a stigma because you wanted women not to get into anything like this. And now even for men it's equally like that, even if infidelity both ways today, where we stand today in our society, it's both ways. In fact, if you see in US or in the Western world, it's a make or break situation for people.
Hmm. Hmm. So I think because now in the last 100 years or so, women have been stepping out of the home more. The opportunities are actually equal now, both ways.
Exactly.
So that leads me to a few stereotypes, that have been associated with, having extramarital affairs. But before I go that, I just want to share that there are all kinds of extramarital affairs. It doesn't have to be, the partner is there could be a situation where they've been married for 10, 20, 30 years, and then they find a little bit of excitement or a kind of an adrenaline rush, of going out with somebody else or dating somebody else. So there are such cases. Then there are cases when the marriage itself is not very good to begin with, or there are cases of violence and abuse, and one of the partners was actually seeking friendship or companionship outside the marriage, which then becomes something deeper. Or maybe the couple was already in love before marriage and they were forced to marry each other, as happens in India. Marriage happens for various reasons, not just love. It happens for social, religious. It happens for property matters. It happens for legal reasons. So there are a lot of reasons for people to get married besides love. But then maybe the couple, even they were married to other people, but even then they kept in touch with each other. So, you have all kinds of situations. Sometimes it's a long distance relationship. They've never even met each other. They've never had physical intimacy, but it's still counted as an extramarital affair because they're deeply in love with one another. So there are really all kinds of relationships we come across. And, let's talk about some of the stereotypes that are there about extramarital affairs. So what we've just seen in these kind of studies, let me show you what some of these stereotypes are. So the first stereotype, for instance, is that there must be something wrong in the marriage. But as we know, that's not always the case. Sometimes you may be in a perfectly happy marriage, but you're just seeking a little bit of thrill outside, and you really don't want your marriage to break apart because of that. It's just a momentary kind of
In
spur
fact,
of the moment
in
decision.
fact,
Yeah,
Ekta, on
yeah.
this point, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a psychologist also, and who deals with a lot of such cases. She told me that most of the time this is not the case. That
Hmm.
there is something missing in the marriage. It's just to
Hmm.
tell yourself as a person when you're getting into it that, oh, this was missing in my marriage, and that is why I kind of went ahead and did something else.
Right.
Psychologically, when they are talking to people who are into it and are treating them, as the therapist and everybody, they say that it's mostly 80% or 70% of the time, and that's what their research says, that 70%, 70 to 80% of the time, it's more often of an experiment, of an adrenaline rush, or there is that high that they want, which is probably in them, not in
Hmm.
the system that they are in or in the relationship that they are in.
Yeah, yeah, right. And there are also the other stereotypes that only men have affairs outside marriage. That's not true. Women equally get attracted to other people. There's also no particular age or stage in life. They talk about the 7-year itch or the 14-year itch, but that doesn't happen. I mean, everybody has a different story. You can get attracted to somebody else at any time. And of course, the last one, that people who have extramarital affairs are of loose character. And I think this is one of the most common stereotypes about extramarital affairs, and it's one of the reasons why there's so much stigma attached to it. But as we can see, it's not necessarily because of them having a loose character. Maybe they were terribly lonely, and maybe something was meant to happen, and they were. So let's not judge people. Let's not go into that.
Absolutely.
Um, what do you think, Shweta, when it comes to the definition of infidelity? Do you think that there are everybody has a different definition? I mean, for some, it could mean something else, and for some, it
Yeah,
could mean something.
absolutely. I mean, for some, a small fling is a big deal. So it totally depends. For some, even if somebody is looking at your wife, is infidelity. For some, if your wife is talking to somebody with all that, if and she's smiling away, then that could lead to a problem for a lot of them. So everybody has a extremely different definition of infidelity, and research also says that men normally feel the sense of betrayal, and they are more concerned when there is a physical intimacy. There is and there's a physical contact. That's what disturbs them the most. And I think that's why they kind of when somebody is complimenting your wife, or somebody's complimenting your girlfriend, you feel that, oh, there's a problem there. Whereas for women it's more emotional, and I think it's that's what the that's what it's in every case. For even love, when you see and the love that we are talking about in terms of marriage, because if and that is the love that which has lots of expectations in it, which has a lot of boundaries in it. So if that kind of love, the infidelity explanation and the definition also has different edges to it. Basically, for women it's emotional, for men it's physical and sexual. So that's why.
Right, right. So now that we understand, or at least try to understand, why people do have extramarital relationships, let's look at the important factor of how to deal with these. Now, obviously, there are two sides to this. The first side is that you are the person who is attracted to somebody outside your marriage, and the other side is that you're the person who has been betrayed and your spouse has had an affair. So, how do you deal with it in both cases? So, we're going to look at that now. So let's start with the person who is attracted to somebody outside their marriage. First of all, you need to understand yourself, your motivations for doing this, and also you have to understand why are you in this marriage. What does this marriage mean to you? Is it because you are there for social reasons? You're there because it's a family commitment, or is it a love commitment? Is it a personal commitment you have made to the other person? And so what is it going to mean when that person comes to know that you have had been attracted to somebody outside? Because you see, sooner or later they'll come to know. Either they'll get to know from you, or they'll get to know from somebody else. And even if they don't, I think it's something that you should think about. How would they feel if they came to know about it? Is your relationship going to be a long-term relationship? Do you need to tell your partner about it? Or is it a small, short term thing and you don't think your partner needs to know about it? So I'm not going to give you the answers. You're going to have to think of the answers for yourself, because in either way, there's going to be a repercussion for that. So let me just list out all the points for you so that you can remember this. Understand yourself and your reason to be in the marriage. What would happen if you told your partner about it? What would be their response? Would they be completely devastated, or maybe they would be happy, that you're happy? And be prepared for the consequences. How are they going to behave? Are they going to call for an end to the relationship, to the marriage? Or are they going to say, okay, fine, let's work around it and move ahead? So try to be prepared. Like I said, have your infidelity response program. And I think at this point, I would like to add that there are certain qualities that you can develop, which is wisdom, wisdom about what actions to take, compassion for your partner, because ultimately they are going to find out. And even if they don't find out, are you being fair to them? Or do they need to know, or do they not need to know? Are you being fair to yourself? So think about all these things, develop these qualities, not just for the other person, but also for yourself. And also clarity, like where do you want to go from here? What is your long term goal? And even if you don't want to think about your long term goal, think about who are you as a person, and what do you stand for, and what are your values. And if you're seeking happiness, if you're seeking joy, being with somebody, just understand yourself, because if you know yourself, then your actions will become clear, then it's a no brainer, and then you don't have to think about what your next step is going to be. Now, coming to the other side, for people whose partners have cheated on them, we actually had a developmental psychologist and psychotherapist, Dr. Shambhavi Alve from Mumbai, and she's going to share some of her thoughts on this. So I'm going to play her bites now here.
Okay, so talking about how we get over it and how do we get over this entire, the feeling of betrayal, because betrayal will not be a very simple emotion when one experiences it, right? It can be a complex emotion in itself. So there can be lot of things which can happen. Just कुछ अगर मुझे examples share करने हो, so a lot of times there is the self questioning thing, self blaming which comes into place. There's also this need to seek validation. Where did I go wrong? Why did this happen? वो पूरा sulking वाला मोड आ जाता है जहाँ पे खुद ही guilty feel करने लग जाते हो that something was wrong with me and so my partner went out. This can happen. So we say that betrayal or अगर आपका spouse is involved in any such extramarital affair, it comes as more of a trauma for the person, for the other partner who's experiencing it, and it can take a good amount of time to get over it. And when we say getting over it, or when we say moving on, now moving on can be looked at through two different ways it can be looked at. One is moving out से ये हमारा मतलब हो सकता है कि you want to be with that partner itself. You have somewhere accepted it. The other option, which is about moving away, as in like completely cutting off yourself from that relationship, taking a divorce, moving into another relationship, or maybe just separating out from this particular person. In either case, you will have to take your own stand. You will have to make that choice for yourself.
So, as she's explaining, there's a choice you have to make. You have to decide whether moving on for you means staying in that relationship, which may mean forgiving, which may mean working on your relationship, which may mean trying to understand your partner better, and which may mean that your partner also has to have equal amount of input and try to fix things. And the other case would be that moving on means you might want to leave that partner, which is something that I think it is increasingly common, but I think in a lot of Indian marriages, it's not possible to just leave your partner for, even if they have cheated on you. So let's see what Dr. Shambhavi has to say about, how do you get yourself to stay in the relationship even after you know that your partner has cheated on you.
If you decide to be and you want to make that relationship work again, प्लीज़ give yourself some time, because आप एकदम से अपने आप को उसमें push करने लगोगे, then it can be a challenge and it can be a very difficult relationship, not just for you and for your spouse, but also for the other members. If you have children, if you plan to have a child in future, all these things are somewhere going to impact even उनका relationship with you, with your spouse, and in general overall family dynamics in the house. So make sure you yourself personally have dealt with those emotions, with that trauma at your personal level. That is one. Secondly, there can be a lot of different ways in which you can vent out, because जब ऐसी कोई घटना होती है, because I'm calling it a trauma, it will take time to heal. But while this healing is happening, because if you just let it be कि हाँ अपने आप हो जाएगा, time will heal, no, it really takes a lot of efforts on your part to heal that part of you which has been wounded in this entire process. So how do we do it? One of the best ways to do it is just venting out whatever you feel. Try writing it down, try journaling it down, because jitna aap likhoge, you will try to vent out all those thoughts, which and these thoughts can be they can be very haunting at times, jo continuously aati rehti hai, overthinking hota rehta hai, and it can take a complete toll of your emotional health. So try working on your thoughts. That's the first thing I would really insist for you to begin with. And maybe once you start venting out and you have more clarity of your thoughts, taking a decision for yourself will be even more a little easy, if not more, but it will be a little easy as to whether you want to be in this relationship, continue with this person, or do you want to move away. In either way, it will be your choice. So जो लोग ऐसे बोलते हैं ना कि नहीं हमारे पास कोई choice ही नहीं थी, we had to stay, no, you end of the day you take a choice, you make a choice, and you take your own stand as in how and what you want to do. But very, very important, first you need to work on yourself. Only then you'll be in a position to take a stand for yourself, right? That is one. And secondly, very important, try seeking help, try seeking counseling from a professional, try seeking out a therapist, therapies, because that helps to a great extent. If you can work on yourself using professional means, nothing, as compared to that, right? So,
So, to sum up everything that Dr. Shambhavi said, don't get into self-pity mode. It's not about you. It's a choice that the other person has made. And it doesn't mean that you're less of a wife or a husband. It doesn't, it's not, there's not something wrong with you. So first, get out of that self-pity mode and then understand your reason to be in the marriage. Like she said, it's a choice, whether you decide to stay, whether you decide to go. When we say that हमारी choice नहीं है, it's there is a choice. You've prioritized your marriage above your feelings of betrayal, and you've decided to stay in that marriage. So give yourself a pat on the back for using your own wisdom and coming up with the solution that you think at that time is the right solution. And like she said, seek help. And once you seek help, take some positive action about it. So I'm going to list down the points here so that it's easy for you to remember. If you're feeling betrayed by your partner, don't beat up yourself about it. It's not about you. Understand yourself and your reason to be in this marriage. This is for both partners, it's the same. Seek help, take positive action, and the qualities that you can develop are strength, self respect, forgiveness, and that's not just for the other person, it's also for yourself. Because a lot of times people blame themselves for everything that goes wrong in the marriage. And so learn to forgive not just the other person, but also yourself. I think that's a huge lesson. And if you can take that away, from the whole experience, you might even end up strengthening your relationship. You might even end up on a better footing because now you've been through that rough patch and you've been able to really come together and decide this is our priority, and our priority is this marriage, and our priority is not what the random person on the street had to say about it. So, so have a better role model in your life and choose, where you want to go. So that's it for us from today. And I hope you were able to take away something about extramarital relationships. And even if you're not in one yourself, you can always enlighten yourself about these things and be ready with your infidelity response program. So I'll see you next week, next Friday on eShe TV. And bye bye. Have a nice weekend.